appreciate the continued support for Jin, and you know, like Wes said, I hope to attend as much as I can in the future. I hope that this is a new year. I'm looking forward to good things, man. I think the bad stuff is in the past, and I'm just ready to be the version of myself that the community wants, knew, and loved. I'm looking forward to it, guys. It's gonna be a good year.
So yeah, I got a last word.
What's up?
Let's just play the goddamn game. That's all right. Let's play the game.
That sounds good to me. It sounds good to me.
Play the game.
Right now, I'm staring at a half-lit Google Doc and a blinking cursor that feels almost like a metronome, counting down the seconds since March 25th, 2025, the day that Aziz, Hacks Money Al-Yami, flatlined in an ICU, 8 months after the train that took his leg, and with it, the last remaining thread tethering him to the game that he had breathed and bled for 2 straight decades. I never shook his hand, I never played a set against him, never bought one of his box controllers. My only tangible connection to Hacks was a scatter of Twitter hearts that he dropped on a few of my free Hacks posts during the final year of his life. Fast forward to today, and Hacks is now gone. The major players of this story have reduced it to nothing but a tidy morality play. Brilliant Player makes a dictator comparison in his video on Leffen. Community banishes him for his own health. Tragedy ensues. Roll credits. Well, let me tell you, Smash community, Tidy is not honest. Tidy doesn't explain why a grassroots esport renowned for family-style camaraderie chose gag orders over rehabilitation, why so-called friends cosplayed as Leffen-funded saboteurs just to watch an amputee mentally spiral, or why YouTube nuked the Lone Comprehensive Exposé documentary after a coordinated mass report brigade from Twitter and Reddit. I owe it to you, Technicals, and Aziz, a version of the story of Hacks that refuses any of these shortcuts. So buckle up, because the Control-F warriors on Twitter and Reddit will hate that I'm even doing this video in the first place, and that means I'm finally doing it right. In case you could not tell, this video is not one of my normal documentaries. In fact, I wouldn't really go as far as to call this a documentary at all, so please do not treat it as such. My only goal here with this video is to spread a message that I've been trying to spread on other platforms for a long-ass fucking time, unsuccessfully, with the hope that this story will somehow reach a new audience willing to come to their own conclusions on the matter. Any and all proceeds that this video makes will be going directly to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is a charity that I have supported several times on my channel in the past. If you would like to donate to the cause, there is a link below in the description. And if you would like to support me as a creator, you can watch quite literally any of the other videos that I have on my channel in your own free time. So yeah, anyways, with all that said, let's get into the video.
Grab the boost, up smash, back there, welcome back, Hacks! Welcome back!
Aziz says this running joke about, you know in Mega Man, like in the Mega Man intro, it's like, the year is 20XX. Yeah. So Aziz's thing is, the year is 20XX. Everyone plays Fox. And there's this whole, like, post-apocalyptic universe that is built off of, like, Fox being the only viable character left.
Because I had nothing to lose, I sought out to get my career back by designing a controller called the Box. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why Leffen is a disease that can be expected to fully erode the Smash community, as well as several other esports communities within the next 10 years. How's it going, Melee community? I'd like to sincerely apologize for the way in which I recently took a personal feud, overblew it, and basically turned it into the entire community's problem. I'd like to especially apologize to the fans and spectators who were surely caught off guard and stressed out by the way that I basically forced people to choose between one side or the other.
That, and he's wisely returned to center stage.
What I really like what Hacks, he's pressuring the
Jeez. Yeah.
And that's just your test socket.
I was worried.
That's just your test, Aziz.
I was worried.
Oh, you look good, Aziz. You don't even look like
this might sound sensitive, but outside of the fact it wasn't even a suicide attempt, he literally got sick.
I do feel bad for Leffen, because now Hacks isn't here,
And now Leffen has to deal with this.
I know it's not the nice goody-goody two-shoes thing to say. I'm really mad at the Melee community for doing this.
That's awesome, but we want to just say thank you so much for supporting Xanadu over the years, and we appreciate your patronage.
Absolutely. And I just want to, before we close out, I just want to say thank you to the Melee community. You know, much love to you guys. I'm trying to do good things for you guys from here on out, and any opportunities to be with the community I love, super appreciate it. I really appreciate what Gamer did for me today. So I just want to say thank you to him. He's a good man.
Jump back, he's back on stage. Hags getting the light neutral air there.
Yeah.
What a great shine from
Leffen.
Again. How many shines?
Oh, but
this is
off
big.
stage.
This is big.
Is this gonna be it?
Oh, this might be it.
Leffen off stage.
This might be it. Oh, and Hags does it.
3-1 over TSM Leffen.
Oh my goodness.
And what a statement to make
and
for Hags money.
Leffen is out of this tournament. Leffen is out of Genesis 7.
Leffen has been eliminated
by
in
Mango and
place.
Before we unpack what the Technicals video actually says, I feel like I need to underline why anyone outside the tight-knit Smash circles should even care that this particular documentary vanished overnight. While Technicals was a smasher for years before, he burst onto the scene in 2019 and 2020 with his investigative YouTube uploads that blended court records, archived Discord logs, and Twitter ephemera into feature-length investigative video essays. That sudden success, coupled with the fact that he was attempting to investigate the players that the wider scene had already convicted in the court of public opinion, cemented him as Smash's most divisive and most controversial figure. People who were burned by those exposés still insist to this day that he cherry-picks his details or moralizes too hard. I don't necessarily share that blanket dismissal of his content, but I'm also not pretending that the man is flawless. What matters right now, though, is that Technicals spent months assembling a 2-hour autopsy of how the Melee community first idolized, then quarantined, and finally abandoned his dead friend. That video was false flagged off of YouTube 48 hours after launch. And since then, YouTube's official response has been to side with the legal complaints. On May 21st, 2025, YouTube support finally replied to Technicals on Twitter saying, "Hi there, we reviewed your channel and found that your content has been removed due to one or more legal complaints that we received. We reviewed your appeal and determined that we're unable to reinstate your content." So, if the original voice is being throttled not just by mass reporting, but by legal threats and the platform itself, to the point where he has to quite literally re-edit and censor his original video to re-upload onto YouTube, then yeah, I'm comfortable stepping in to restate the argument in my own way, so newcomers and old heads alike can judge the evidence for themselves. The documentary opens with a very stark thesis. Hax was not ruined by a single impulsive rant comparing Leffen to a dictator. He was undone by a multi-year-long cascade of institutional gaslighting.
This series of events is fairly multifaceted, and I will be getting into the details later, but it stemmed primarily from his deteriorating mental health attributed to his prolonged and mishandled ban from competing in Melee, a community where he built his life, business, and identity for the past 2 decades. But personally, I believe a mixture of alcohol, depression, harassment, and isolation is ultimately what led us to where we are now.
Tech frames the community's treatment of hacks in 4 phases: initial suspension, conditional parole, permanent global ban, and posthumous face saving, arguing that each step compounded the previous harm. First, organizers slapped an indefinite ban on hacks in June 2021 for his infamous evidence.zip2 video, ostensibly because the rhetoric that was in the video could have inspired harassment. Then, when NYC Melee trimmed that ban down to a 1-year parole in 2023, they did it with a gag order clause that barred him from even talking about his own case. Hacks kept his head down for 12 months and went to over 30 events without a single incident. You'd think he'd be fine, but no, the second he published a calmer, citation-heavy appeal video in January 2024, NYC Melee snapped the trap shut, declaring that he had violated his parole by even daring to speak in the first place, and somehow convinced dozens of major events to impose a permanent global worldwide blacklist from allowing hacks at Smash events. The overarching point here is that the punishment curve never reset. It just escalated no matter how often hacks tried to apologize or comply or compromise. Where the video really bites is the segment on the private group chat harassment that Hacks endured in the final year of his life. Screenshots show a half-dozen quote-unquote friends tricking Hacks into believing Leffen had paid spies to sabotage his unban campaign, ridiculing and making fun of the stump on his amputated leg, and forging DMs from organizers to stoke false hope. Tech spliced those logs next to entries from Hacks' medical timeline and hospitalization after the August 2024 subway incident, and argued that the psychological damage was inseparable from the organizers' silence.
I can't even begin to explain how evil you have to be to actively fuck over negotiations to get his life back, make fun of his disability and depression, and then show up at his funeral and in front of his own mother act like you gave a single fuck about him. I know this is you because I confirmed it with Manalord and I joined the server and found the rest of what you were saying myself. Did you think I wouldn't find this? I'm amazed you were stupid enough to think I'd let you off the hook. Let's give a shout out to Chops, Joey, and IOUK for all their work in encouraging Hacks to make more videos for our entertainment. You can't be serious. You, IOUK, Orez, and everyone else who went out of their way to manipulate and harass Hacks, in my opinion, are the most vile people in this entire fucked up situation. And I'm not even one to usually police trolling or cracking jokes, but this was supposedly your friend who was suicidal. Where the fuck is your moral compass? If you had a problem with how Hacks was treating you and responding to you, you could have just removed yourself from the situation like a normal person, instead of egging him on when he was clearly in a dark place. And then have the fucking balls to start shitting on the TOs and top players like you're somehow better. But hey, at least you got a few good laughs out of it, right?
Also pretty damning was when the guy who quite literally stole and ripped off his product published a legal deposition that leaked his full residential address. But no, it's okay because it actually wasn't the right address. It was just a couple doors down from where Hacks actually lived. Same apartment building though. People love to publicly insist that the address was already public prior to leaking of the document, which is an assertion that Tech immediately disproves with a live courthouse search recording.
And Jackzilla said it was public for months, which is also a lie because if you actually looked it up, you can't find the deposition files on any public case records. Otherwise, it would have likely had redactions for this exact reason. You can really tell who does and doesn't have experience looking up legal cases. The files originated from an internal dispute with his company's manufacturing, but if you want to know all the financial details, you can watch this segment from my Victims of Leffen video. But if you want a quick summary, it's basically like a financial ruination plot where all these people undercut his product and steal his IP, but go watch it for the details. The whole thing where they openly spread his docs is like a massive cover-up job, even to this day, because none of them have taken accountability, and no one has been punished for it. So I guess that's just another installment in the "it's okay when we do it" community.
And just to give my own perspective on this whole situation, when the doxing was actually happening, like when it was first happening, I directly responded to Greg Turbo on Twitter in hopes that he would actually respond to me and engage in a good faith conversation. He immediately blocked me and then went private. And he's still private to this day, I'm pretty sure. Way to take accountability, Greg. So I think you guys can tell that the takeaway is pretty blunt here. The same exact gatekeepers who preached privacy and safety were careless at best and malicious and vindictive at worst, especially when the docs belonged to someone that they had already been previously ostracizing. Now, after laying out all that evidence, Tech would then turn the lens on himself for a minute, basically anticipating all of the credibility pushback that, of course, he did receive. And I also want to take a moment to address this little topic right here. Yeah, I know, it's technicals. Yes, he's the Zero guy. Yeah, I'm more than aware of that, and my position on Zero is not quite the same as technicals, believe it or not. But that, it doesn't really matter. Like, does any of that other stuff really matter in this context? Listen, receipts don't just become fake because the messenger just so happens to be extremely polarizing and unpopular. That doesn't make the proof invalid. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, within 48 hours of upload, the video was instantly hit with a privacy complaint targeting the exact timestamp that exposes the extremely vile group chat bullshit that Hax's own friends were doing to him. So the idea that a legitimate third-party privacy breach just so happened to slip through after the video had already been up for 48 hours, it's just laughable. What's far likelier, and what r/SSBM moderator and known dumbass Duffy basically confirmed, is that the same circle Tech criticized mass reported the link until YouTube's automated system literally fucking blinked. Reddit would end up celebrating this takedown with World War II Hitler dead memes, focusing on deriving amusement out of successfully silencing a dissenting public voice. That knee-jerk victory lap ironically illustrates Tech's exact point here. Suppress the conversation, repaint criticism as harassment, and hope the noise drowns down the receipts. Removing the source has not killed the discussion at all, by the way, just letting you know, Melee Reddit. In fact, that's the reason why I'm here. It's actually just forced the conversation into mirrors and re-uploads and a digital whack-a-mole that will only continue to make the community look more and more defensive and more pathetic. So yeah, that's where I come in. Good old Kusari. If Tech's video is going to be memory hold, someone has to keep the record legible for people who weren't around for every Twitter spat in 2021. YouTuber The Franchise has an amazing video that is still up about the Hax situation, where he offers his own testimony about his experiences with Hax and trying to get him unbanned, as well as his opinions about how everything was handled. And just like Franchise in his video, I'm not here to canonize Technicals or be Technicals Jr. Like I said, I have disagreed on bits and pieces of stories that Tech has covered before in the past. Me and Tech are two widely very different people, but we do just so happen to align on one blunt principle. Even a flawed messenger deserves to be answered with counter evidence and not a mass flag and cover-up campaign. So consider this next segment the Cliff Notes edition of a documentary that Twitter and Reddit are trying their absolute best to stop people from watching because the very people who contributed to this allegedly are the ones who are striking it down. If the Melee scene honestly believes that Technical's receipts are wrong, it can attempt on their own to refute them point by point. I still have yet to see them actually do that. So until then, I'm going to keep the arguments in circulation, because pretending the files and screenshots for what you all fucking did to Hax doesn't exist is exactly how we got to a place where banning a legend and a pioneer of the game for talking was somehow acceptable. Melee's 23-year story arc is easier to parse if you break it into 4 tectonic shifts. Epics, where the scene's DNA remixed itself under pressure. Similarly to how Tech illustrates Hax's ban timeline and mistreatment in 4 phases. And if we're gonna talk about what broke Aziz Al-Yami, we need to understand the tectonic plates that were already shifting beneath his feet. Melee's first decade feels almost prehistoric when you scroll Twitch in 2025, but back then, every set that mattered was played on a hand-me-down CRT in somebody's parents' den. That dog-eared do-it-yourself culture birthed the game's earliest demigods, Ken, Isai, PC Chris, but it also forged a pipeline for teenagers who treated the GameCube controller like an instrument. Abdulaziz Al-Yami was barely in middle school when he joined that pipeline. Before Melee, he had been grinding competitive Pokemon ladders where critical hits and 50-50 status rolls were dismissed and referred to as the term hacks. Salty opponents spammed the word so often that he adopted it as a tag, and then tacked on a $sign because the in-game character counter demanded a 4th glyph. Thus, Hack's Money was born. By Pound 3 in 2008, his first major, Hacks was a literal geographical problem.
Didn't make any sound.
Grab that shitty.
The next 15 months were an escalator. 13th at Revival of Melee, 4th at Apex 2009, 7th at the original Genesis. Important seeds were planted in these rooms. The perfectionist mentality, the willingness to lone wolf practice tech that nobody else thought was possible, the conviction that if luck, or fittingly, Hacks flips a match, then mastery must flip it back.
There you go. There you go. That's right.
Now, top players aren't just local celebrities anymore. They're Twitch draws and sponsorship assets, and the metagame accelerates accordingly. Hacks would spend 2010 and 2011 refining a Captain Falcon that commentators would call surgical, piling up top 8 after top 8. Apex 2012, Zenith, FC Legacy, you name it. It wouldn't take long until the general community consensus was that Hacks Fucking Money was the best solo Falcon alive.
There's a custom combo. Oh, Pixies! What's the button? What's the button? I'm sorry. So gets the light not. Oh! Oh my goodness. Destruction. Reset, re-grab. Grab the boost, up smash. Back there. Welcome back, Hacks. Welcome back. New York City is on the map. Oh. New York City is on the map.
But the metagame's center of gravity was shifting more and more towards Fox McCloud's limitless ceiling, and Aziz's wrists were fraying under the frame-perfect inputs that he was already forcing onto Captain Falcon. So in 2013, he pulled the trigger and would end up switching his main. To justify what many in his fanbase saw as a betrayal to the Captain Falcon sub-community of Melee, he would coin a joke prophecy.
So you know in Mega Man, like in the Mega Man intro, it's like the year is 20XX.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aziz's thing is the year is 20XX. Everyone plays Fox. And there's this whole like post-apocalyptic universe that is built off of like Fox being the only viable character left.
Yeah.
Like humanity has reached its pinnacle. Like the tournament metagame has gotten to this point where everything is played out to theoretical perfection. So they rock, paper, scissors for port priority, and then that's the set. And everyone gets really excited about the port priority RPS. So then RPS's metagame has like really evolved, to where it's really just like RPS tournaments are now.
Wow.
And that's the world we live in the year 20XX.
The summer of 2014 featured the first public sightings of the Hackstash, an invincible ledge refresh that became mandatory study for the next generation of players. But each new technique costs cartilage. Insomnia, tendinitis, and eventual arthritis drove him to multiple hand surgeries and successive lengthy hiatuses. Unable to sustain a top-level Fox on a standard GameCube controller, he teamed up with 2 Rutgers engineers and designed the Box, an all-button arcade-style board controller aimed at preventing hand strain while preserving tournament legality.
In late 2016, hope came in the form of digital controllers entering the fray within the Smash community. I was quick to try out early models of these controllers as a potential solution to my problems, but I was just as quick to find out what I'd gotten myself into. Converting Melee to digital inputs came with all sorts of implications which ranged from game balance to intuitive design. All of this was uncharted territory, and many people doubted that creating a functional digital controller was even possible. Because I had nothing to lose, I sought out to get my career back by designing a controller called the Box. Most of the work I did on the box took place in 2017 and 2018, but plenty of finishing touches were given in more recent years. The discoveries I made along the way caused me to gain a deeper understanding of the game and contribute to other projects as well, such as fixes for GameCube controllers. Most importantly, the box would end up saving thousands of Melee players' careers. This video will cover the full extent of the work I did to design an ergonomic controller that would change the game forever.
Soon enough, COVID lockdowns began to slam the brakes on in-person events, just as Slippy Rollback unlocked stable online Melee. Suddenly, tens of thousands were watching nightly netplay streams, and in July of 2020, a massive decades-long wave of old drama, allegations, and cases of misconduct within the community was reopened under even brighter lights. So nearly a year later, in June of 2021, Hacks would go on to release Evidence.zip 2, a 2+ hour long video alleging that his longtime rival Leffen manipulated abuse allegations for clout and profit. Valid documents and valid arguments are buried beneath strange and nonsensical comparisons to people like Hitler and armchair psychology.
In this video, I'm going to explain to you why Leffen is a disease that can be expected to fully erode the Smash community as well as several other esports communities within the next 10 years. There's a quote that goes, "The greater the crime perpetrated by the leadership, the less likely the people will ever believe their leaders capable of perpetrating such an event." That is unfortunately a Hitler quote, but it's one that's very applicable to the current situation. The story that's unraveling right before our very eyes is strikingly similar to Death Note. The Death Note is a book that can be used to issue death sentences simply by writing someone else's name down. Should this tool fall into the wrong hands, it would terrorize an entire society. The funny thing is, Leffen is basically trying to turn his phone into the Death Note. Through the use of modern technology and a good understanding of crowd psychology, it's actually possible to create a Death Note nowadays, and people need to be wary of that. When I beat Leffen at Genesis 7, I was wearing a red pair of Adidas pants with white stripes on them. These pants would become synonymous with my run at that tournament. A few months after Genesis 7, someone sent me a picture they took of Leffen streaming. Leffen was wearing a red Adidas shirt with white stripes on its sleeves while editing a digital controller's button layout. Again, this wasn't a coincidence. It was a psychopath's way of showing that he wants revenge. Leffen is attempting totalitarianism, and that's going to become clearer and clearer as this video goes on. For now, I'll be listing totalitarianism as the first of many charges against Leffen. The fact that I can look at the state of Smash in 2021 and reasonably compare it to totalitarianism means that the prophecy has become all too real. In Nazi Germany, for example, Hitler purged a large group within the Nazi Party in 1934. He viewed the people within this group as potential threats to his ascent, and so he needed them gone. Surely enough, this scheme was instrumental in Hitler's rise. In December 2017, Leffen posted a video of himself stabbing a pancake that had a green Jigglypuff drawn on it. This video tells you that Leffen desperately wanted to get rid of HBox. It's identical to when he bought a red Adidas shirt shortly after losing to me at Genesis. Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the video, or if you skipped here, that's totally fine too, since I'll be recapping a bunch of the information that I've given to you throughout this video. So the first thing that I want to start by showing you is a slide of a dystopian society. So the first way that you know that you're living in a totalitarian state is that the person with the highest follower account in this community does not allow you to view his Twitter account. Samox has actually been subdued. Samox is now the head minister of propaganda for the regime. Believe it or not, you are actually witnessing a modern day totalitarian regime. And so I've come to inform the Smash community of these injustices in the hopes that it will spark change. So now that the Smash community knows the truth, I think it's time for us to take back the free world. Thank you for watching.
This attracted the attention of various Smash TOs around the world and in Hacks' local scene of New York. They treated the video as a live grenade of sorts. A national block of TOs would issue an indefinite ban on Hacks from attending all local events, and 2023, of course, would end up bringing that conditional unban limited to local tournaments in New York. But there would be clauses within that would sort of function as a gag order. No public statements about other players, no interviews about your ban, no appeals, and no petition to help run what used to be his own local tournament series that he created. He follows the rules, competes in over 30 events incident-free, uploads multiple apology videos stripped of any weird comparative rhetoric, and is still hit with a global permaban in January of 2024 after posting a calm appeal video that organizers labeled continued harassment. Hey everyone, Editor Kusari here. Sorry if my mic quality sounds a little bit shit. I'm interjecting in the middle of editing this video because I'm just now realizing that I forgot to touch up on something I should have mentioned in my original script, to be honest. So anyways, let's just get ahead of the inevitable. Yes, after Hax uploaded and later took down his January 2024 ban appeal, he would go on to post another video titled The Truth. And in this video, he would double down on his original claims against Leffen, he would re-reference his original evidence.zip testimonies, and he would basically fully recant his previous apology and delete a bunch of tweets and videos where he had previously shown remorse. I can already smell all of the comments of people saying that Technicals conveniently left this out of his video. And yeah, Hax's The Truth video is not a part in Technicals' video. I get that. That is a fact. That is true. But here's the thing. I don't really give a fuck. I don't really know what else to tell you. The organizers had already decided that mentioning Leffen alone was enough to justify a permanent ban. This later video that Hax had made after he had already apologized only served to confirm what they had already believed. It was used after the fact to further justify a punishment that had already been decided. The NYC Melee ban statement? It was based on the January appeal, the global ban doc. It mentions both videos, but it also cites the same core violations that were already in play. None of this negates the fact that the system was built to escalate no matter what Aziz did. He played nice and he got punished. He appealed and he got punished harder. He got emotional and he got completely erased. I wouldn't really go as far as to call that a justice system. I wouldn't really call it a justice system. I'd call it more like a rigged loop. Like, yeah, Hax got frustrated. He snapped. He made a U-turn. Maybe it wasn't strategic, maybe it wasn't the most wise choice, but if you try going 2.5 years of being continuously gaslit, mocked, and then permanently exiled over a video that you have continuously and repeatedly apologized for, most people would not have made it 2 months. And I'm willing to bet actual money on that. So don't get it twisted. Showing that Hax lashed out again, it doesn't prove that he deserved exile. It proves what exile does to someone. And if you think that him posting his truth video or whatever the fuck somehow invalidates all of the harassment, all of the bullshit that he endured, or the negligence that enabled it, then you're not arguing in good faith, my homie. You're just trying to make the story more easy to ignore. That, my friend, is the truth. Anyways, let's get on with the video. During that same stretch, targeted trolling would escalate, like the group chat stuff. And then the whole doxing situation happened. Yet, despite all this, Hax somehow still found windows to shine. 2nd at Smash Factor, 17th at Tipped Off. But the psychological bill accumulated until March 2025, when complications from his leg amputation abruptly ended his life at the age of 30. You know, in many ways, I think we are living in the timeline that Aziz always envisioned, but not necessarily a version of that timeline that he would have wanted. If the DIY apparatus that prides itself on community let a 20-year veteran and legend of the game die on the other side of a permanent ban, what else is it ready to sacrifice? Everything from Hax was stolen from him. Not just figuratively, but literally. Hax's own fucking IP, the box, was taken from him. Now, who's the biggest player in Hax completely getting his IP stolen and ripped off from him? None other than Greg Turbo, aka Stephen Casimir. Did you know that he was in an acrimonious lawsuit with Aziz over the Frame 1, which is a complete and total ripoff of the box, by the way, which he and his father dragged out in court for like 3 years and constantly asked for another delay like every 6 months? The lawsuit drained Aziz's profits from his box sales, and it also completely drained him emotionally throughout his 20s. And keep in mind, this series of events preceded the writing of the evidence.zip2 video. Yeah, this was before that. Also, cute little coincidence, Greg Turbo just so happens to be really good friends with Mikey the Cheat, who is the TO who literally wrote the letters banning hacks in the first place. You'd think that the possible collusion and prejudice against Aziz between the two should have at least forced Mikey to recuse himself from writing the ban statement altogether, but I digress. Not only that, Hacks' own tournament series, Hacks' Nightclub, which changed their name to just The Nightclub after Hacks was banned, quietly renamed themselves to NYC Stock Exchange to not just keep themselves in good spirits with the community, but to also blackball Hacks' own friend Wes, who at the time had just announced his own memorial tournament series in honor of Hacks. The future of the Smash community, in my opinion, completely hinges on whether they decide to rebuild the scaffolding or slap yet another coat of paint on the cracks. I feel that tension personally, being a part of this community myself. Bookmark this truth. The post-Hacks era will be judged by how it responds. Not to a new tech skill plateau in Melee or the inevitable wrath of Nintendo, but to the cost of ignoring its own. If the community passes the test, then maybe 20XX could finally mean a scene mature enough to match the theorized mechanical perfection. But if the community fails, then the next obituary might read exactly the same. The deeper I dig into the receipts, the clearer the picture becomes. The ban machine that swallowed Aziz was never about harm reduction. It was a rolling optics war whose endgame was to silence a critic of high-status players, keep uncomfortable questions off of Twitter, and spare tournament brands the hassle of explaining context to Reddit. Everything else, the therapy rhetoric, the protect the community language, the private offers of hush money help from IBDW, that was all set dressing. June 24th, 2021. Indefinite suspension for evidence.zip 2. I think maybe a fixed multi-month suspension would have been perfectly fine. Indefinite? Not really necessary. Anyways, 17 months later, a parole window is carved out, but it's chained to hush clauses. I think this clause is the real killer here. This one criminalizes any apology, clarification, or defense the moment words leave his mouth. That is not rehabilitation, that's political house arrest. During the actual parole period, when Hacks was playing in more than 30 in-person events, he racked 0 harassment reports and even worked with the TOs in the process. By normal parole logic, the sentence is served. Unban him. Instead, the quote-unquote appeal committee ghosted him for months. It's all optics. It was never, not once, about safety or protecting one player from another. In January of 2024, when Hacks uploaded his appeal, NYC Melee would reinstate his ban for speaking publicly. Just days after that, the National Consortium would end up reconvening after months, years of avoiding the subject, and they would rubber stamp a permanent, worldwide, global ban. The yardstick was never, is Hacks a threat? It was, did Hacks stop criticizing Leffen? Once you frame dissent as danger, you can escalate penalties forever without ever having to revisit evidence, and that's clearly what happened here. Every clip of a top player discussing Hacks posthumously, it follows the same fucking template. We all helped behind the scenes, we swear we did. Cody Schwab, also known as IBDW, the second best Melee player in the world, says he offered $20,000 and basically told Hacks to shut the fuck up for 3 months, go to therapy, and maybe the TOs will unban you. On paper, that may sound really generous. In practice, it is hush money. It also came with an optics clause. Keep criticism private. Post-mortem, Cody would end up repeating the fact that he offered Hacks hush money in well over a dozen combined stream clips and tweets. So, good PR, but zero actual impact. I'm not even gonna touch about the mom stuff because frankly, I think it's irrelevant to the situation. But hey Cody, where exactly is that 20K again? Because it certainly never went to Hacks' bank account. I know that for damn fucking sure. Mango, Zane, they all admitted that a permanent ban was absurd. but never ended up actually saying it until after the burial roses dropped. Zayn, in particular, was even given an opportunity to, but he not only bitched out, but went on to insinuate that people directly supporting his friend was damaging to the community.
Before I let you out of here, though, one more thing, one last thing. Can I get a free hacks?
Oh my God.
I'm kidding. Get out of here. I'm not trying to get you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. I can't make a joke. That's crazy.
I'll see you later, man.
Get out of here before you get canceled.
We're gonna do this last podcast.
Get out of here, Zane. Bye-bye.
This is why no Bailey players want to come on the podcast, and he's asking why.
Give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for Zane, the homie.
Oh my God.
This is risk-averse allyship. They feared the same Reddit mobs that chased the TOs, so help was quarantined to staying in the DMs. Hungrybox is the rare partial exception to this. He hosted Hax in his rollback tournaments, apologized to Hax's family directly face-to-face at his funeral, but even then, he still only went public once Hax was already dead.
Back when shit was really, really tough for me, and there was no one coming to my side, he was one of the only people brave enough to tell my part of the story. He defended me. And I should have been braver for him. But then that's my point too, you know what I mean? How, like, think about yesterday. Think about there was other top players paying their respects, and half the comments were just people shitting on them, saying, where was his energy when he was in trouble? The energy was there, you just didn't see it. It couldn't be public energy because of how the community was fucking treating people for speaking about him. That's why myself and other top players, Cody especially, handled things privately with him.
Private sympathy without public leverage is equal to no policy change. Boycott threats, public statements, striking in literally any way could have forced these TOs to possibly re-examine the ban. I mean, Cody said it himself.
No, but the thing is, I understand what they're talking about, because, like, realistically, if we all agreed to not go to events for a while, I do think that they'd have to let him back.
And the fact that top talent has even acknowledged this before shows that they have understood the leverage all along. But even then, people like Cody contradict themselves constantly on that very sentiment. The TO's official line nowadays, compared to 2021, is that they were keeping him banned for his own mental well-being, because his supposed melee addiction made him apparently mentally unstable. Clinical research actually says the exact opposite of that. Stripping belonging and purpose from an at-risk subject magnifies suicidality. These TOs are not therapists, they have never consulted one, and their model, aka comply with a gag or lose your livelihood, mirrors coercive institutionalization rather than evidence-based care. Real parole ties compliance like therapy attendance and sobriety to reduced restriction, not increased. Banning the one passion that gave Hax structure while also deleting his revenue, Hax's depression was guaranteed to worsen.
No, I went after someone. I was like, dude, you know that I offered him 20 grand? Do you know that I'm going to probably need someone to back up, one, the fact that I offered him 20 grand. I'll show you the direct receipt for that. I know we talked about it. If I publicly said 9 months ago that Hax didn't let me pay for his bills for the rest of the fucking year, don't want to feel like he owes you 40K. He didn't. Here's my rule when it comes to giving people money. If I talk about what I'm doing, I say I offered him $20,000. All of a sudden, he's asking for money the next day. You have to question him. Like, dude, didn't Cody give you 20K? Oh, you didn't take it? Why didn't you take it? You know what I told him? I will take care of it if you shut up for 3 months and just go to therapy, do your stuff. I know you're working on yourself. And he still didn't do it. Even after I said, here's money, here's all the stuff you need. I offered the dude $20,000 to pay his bills while he was broke. I just don't talk about it. Why would I talk about it? I don't do things to talk about it for fucking karma points. I do things because I think it's the right thing to do. I offered the guy 20 grand to pay his bills talked with like 5 TOs to get him unbanned. I don't know what else you wanted me to do. I just don't talk about it. I'm sorry. Or over last summer when he was going through the worst part, I offered him $20,000 to pay his bills so he can get therapy while we try to figure out how he gets unbanned. With receipts, by the way. You know, when I was offering him that money to just pay his bills and be quiet so that he can get help and kind of get his life together. Because I was like, dude, if I tell people, I basically gave him like 20 grand and he said no because he wanted to come back to Melee and not go to therapy. Didn't you offer money? I did. 20 grand for 4 months so that he could pay his bills. I was going to not do our lawn for the dogs. Also, keep in mind, Liam, I offered him 4 months of bills paid while I was on Nouns to just go to therapy.
This bullshit therapy or exile ultimatum that Cody Schwab described weaponizes treatment as leverage because it proves that their mental health framing was always about silencing Hax's content because it embarrassed tournament organizers. Tech devotes a late segment of his video to the ideological minefield within the Smash community. Pro-Hax voices are painted as right-wing trolls and technical sheep regardless of their actual politics or opinions or worldview. I see it myself, like even as a Democrat, like I see left-coded harassment from people suggesting that Technicals deserves to be assaulted in public for supposedly being a right-wing grifter or whatever. It slips entirely past mods, entirely past the community, nobody having a greater conversation about whether or not sending death threats to someone like that is okay. The pattern that I've noticed within the Smash community over the past year and a half that I've been following this whole thing is that pretty much anyone who is in support of Hax, anyone challenging Hax's ban, is instantaneously labeled either a Technicals fan with no opinion of their own, or a straight-up rightist. It's an echo chamber that conflates moderation with this distorted sense of ideological purity, quite literally banning ideologies rather than conduct. And the only thing that I've noticed that it has contributed to is just a further split between the sides of the community, which is pretty much exactly what happened when Manalord launched Mana Monthly, which I don't like and I don't agree with. It's essentially a complete and total right-wing factor of the Smash community that allows banned players at their events. I think it is this echo chamber's fault that something like that even exists in the first place, because political litmus tests are a self-fulfilling ostracism engine. Let me once again address that yes, Tech is a polarizing figure. Yet in Technical's latest video, every major claim is footnoted with on-screen PDFs, Twitter archives, stream clips, or live captures. His detractors responded not with counter documents or counter evidence, but with a coordinated privacy strike and celebrating on Twitter and Reddit. If the evidence were faulty, refuting screenshots would be trivial. Mass flagging is confession by action. They fear the receipts, because the receipts are real. I am siding with the documented timeline, not whatever personality cult you Melee players think I'm a fucking part of. The timeline says a 20-plus year vet and legend of the game was placed under unreasonable speech constraints, baited by sadistic trolls, doxxed by the very people regulating him, and permanently banned for a calm appeal. Months later, he died believing the community that he loved had no room for him. That's the moral indictment. And no amount of brand-safe silence from high-seeding players or TOs changes the ledger. 3 years of shifting goalposts, 0 review, 0 licensed mental health input, mockery in private chats, ex post facto redaction of organizer signatures, and now an organized push to erase the documentary that stitched all of this evidence together. If you still believe in the phrase, "we banned him for his own good," I have beachfront property on Final Destination to sell you.
For legal reasons, I will not be saying anything. Once that comes down a bit, though, I'll go back to posting when I'm live, because I don't feel like having to ban a bunch, especially because a lot of people straight up don't know any other side, so I can't even blame them for trying to... Actually, I can blame them for trying to harass. You just shouldn't harass people on Twitter anyways, but I get it. So once I'm done exhausting legal, or not exhausting, once I've done like all my legal prep, then I'll make a statement on it. But until then, by advice of attorneys, I'm not going to say anything. So I'll let you guys know that. You can take from that what you will. I will say I was not the one who copyright striked the video. I was actually a little bit annoyed because I need that video for reference. And it got taken down and I was like, Shit. Does anyone have the video? I need to download it. But yeah, so that's all I'll say on that. I mean, there are parts of the video that I think were actually enlightening and have good points. And I don't think you did the entire thing in Malice after having watched it a few times. But again, I can't say anything on my portion until I'm done with my attorney correspondence. You filing a lawsuit? We'll find out.
This machine did not just fail to protect Hacks. It engineered his isolation, turned his social circle into adversaries, and taught the rest of the scene that whistleblowing equals exile. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, why am I speaking about this? What makes me a credible voice on the subject? I guess I'd have to go back to my sophomore upload, How Technicals Broke the Smash Community. It tackled pretty much every case that Tech had been dissecting up until that point. I decided to reach out to him and ask him for a fact check through his Discord. He would end up correcting a couple timeline slips and a few details that I got incorrect, and we would end up going our separate ways. That was until he ended up reacting to my video on his main channel and split the donos 50-50 with me. No pre-existing friendship, no contract, just a bigger creator signal boosting a random stranger and a small YouTuber who did his homework. That gesture matters to me because it nuked the Kusari Griff's Tech for Clout narrative in one move. I never asked for any of the promo. All I asked was for him to correct my research. Yet even still, the backlash came. Not that it wasn't expected. Fast forward to early 2024, and soon enough, my timeline starts bubbling with free hacks posts. I had already watched Franchise's long-form video about Leffen, skimmed primary documents, and tweeted a handful of times asking why a guy who'd served 18 months of radio silence was still locked out of majors in his local scene. Nothing incredibly insane or grifty, just stuff along the lines of, hey, this ban is excessive, free hacks. Aziz, still half banned, liked a couple of tweets I had made in response to one of my detractors saying that only people who don't play Melee support the free hacks movement. I would end up making a side-by-side comparison between the detractor's tweet and Mewtwo King's tweet from the same day saying free hacks. That was the entire extent of my interaction with hacks in that moment. In fact, my interaction was more so with the detractor than anyone else. Yet still, I'd gotten a DM from Technicals. Yo, can you stop screenshotting hacks liking your posts? Likes are private for a reason, and they're gonna use that against him. After asking why and how, because I didn't fully understand at the time, Tech told me it was because it put hacks at risk of having the TOs see it, and accuse him of engaging with his own crowd of supporters who were defending him to possibly strike him again. As Tech said, his best bet is to just play the game and stay in his lane. That was my light bulb moment. If a Twitter heart from a 5-digit account could be construed as fucking ban evasion, the leash around Hacks' speech was tighter than anything I'd even come close to previously imagining. I would never go on to expose Hacks in this way again, and I do not plan on exposing my interactions with him any further out of respect for the deceased. But I am using this as an example to chronicle how I found out that a situation that I already thought was fucked was somehow 100 times worse behind the scenes. It makes people like Sarah over here look completely and totally fucking pathetic. Imagine being such a fucking loser. You try to fight me in Melee, a game I don't even play, and then rage tweet at me calling me a Turkey Tom wannabe. Ooh, you got me there. Because you made yourself look like an idiot, I then called you out, and you got backlash on Twitter. If I'm just a non-Melee playing grifter who's not a part of the Smash community and knows nothing about the situation because I'm nothing but a blind technical sheep, then I don't know, maybe talk to Hacks' mom about it. But it's not like that even really matters, because even still to this day, there are people who do not think that Hax's mom is actually posthumously running the Twitter account, which I can 100% confirm is her, because through my DMs with her, I was able to get further contact with her outside of Twitter. So why keep pushing? Why keep fighting for Hax? Because strip the so-called nuance of all of the post-mortem anti-Hax think pieces, and you absolve the machinery that prolonged the ban, leaked the docs, and let Discord gremlins erode the last little fragment of his support system that he still had left. I'm not here to martyr myself or put my own, reputation at risk. My reputation has already suffered on Twitter due to being a pro-Haxer. And publicly associating with technicals in my second ever video on my channel has gotten me blocked by some of the biggest figures in commentary. So honestly, I really couldn't care about my reputation anymore. My life is fine, outside of YouTube and on YouTube. I go to college and I just make videos on the side. I don't even operate on a set schedule, I just upload whenever something interests me. But just because I'm a bit of a nobody compared to some other people on Twitter does not mean that I'm not going to call out systemic rot when I see it. Let me make one thing explicitly clear. I'm just a 20-year-old college student and a documentary YouTuber. I just so happened to watch this situation go down, as nearly all of my friends in commentary and all of my former friends in Smash brushed everything about the situation aside and picked the groupthink mentality because they can't ever risk their little fragile ego and give a fair, good faith chance to the boogeyman technicals. So looking ahead, I will continue to use my platform on places like Twitter and on here to criticize organizers, top players, or commentators, irrespective of their community politics. Left, right, center, I honestly do not care. I will not accept excuses about help that come stapled to silence clauses. If someone wants to bankroll mental health resources for at-risk players like Cody did, maybe do it with unconditional grants and not quid pro quo PR deals. I'm speaking as a witness who's had good enough distance to map the pattern and enough stubbornness to keep talking after every block and ratio and lost follower I've been hit by. If that annoys the people who prefer the clean-cut, tidy narratives, good. Tidy got Aziz ran over by a train and buried. Messy might just keep the next name off the headstone. Let's take a minute to talk about what actually did change within the community, because believe it or not, there was change. You can kind of feel it. Maybe not at the majors with the giant screens and pyrotechnics and art booths, but down in the Discord servers, in the Twitch chats, in the replies of tournament organizer and top player tweets. People are louder, yeah, but people are also way quieter. Not in the normal we won't speak way, but in a we're seriously fucking watching our words way. Apparently fucking weirdos like Melee Hell are still around who are making fun of Hax's death completely and totally after the fact and then blaming it on technicals. But apparently they only speak in short sentences now. People drafting documents as if they have a qualified professional opinion on the situation need to seriously reconsider double-checking what they say before they actually speak. They don't really give a fuck, though. Not because they're scared of being canceled. I mean, Smash culture has always been very, very trigger-happy with that. But because the community's collective conscience got shaken. A legend died. Not from cancer, not in a car accident, not from an accidental overdose like Too Mad, not because someone physically killed him, but from the compounded fallout of a years-long exile that you, the Melee scene, manufactured, maintained, and then ignored. Some say the system failed Hax. Others say the system worked exactly how it was designed to. Either way, it sparked the first actual moment of cultural self-reflection that Melee has had since the post-2020 reckoning. Not a hashtag, not a call-out, and not a Notes app statement, but an actual pulse check on community values. We are not at a point in the Smash community where it is anywhere near redemption. This is all still reeling. As Coney puts it best,
I don't think Smash can govern itself.
Because what even is accountability in a space where evidence gets ignored unless it's convenient? What even is accountability in a space where paroles turn into permabans after one public statement? What even is accountability in a space where punishment is more often than not highly based on which person the community likes more? And what even is forgiveness when it comes tethered to silence? I think this saga forced the community to confront just how poorly it understands the difference between justice and optics. The people in charge of Hax's fate treated transparency as a liability. They used privacy as a shield instead of a safeguard. They dished out consequences based on how many Reddit threads and negative quote retweets it might cause for them, and not what was actually provable. And the second that someone tried to untangle all of that logic, even with footnotes, screenshots, and citations, the platform struck it down and the community laughed. Restorative justice? Motherfucker, that's brand maintenance. And worse, there were moments where the very concept of forgiveness quite literally became gatekept for Hax. Like, he quite literally wasn't even allowed to move forward until he followed some unwritten social script to the ban letter. Like, how ridiculous is that? Basically, if the right people don't like you, there is no right way to apologize. And I get it. Trust is hard to rebuild. You are never entitled to someone else's forgiveness. That should be obvious to anyone. But at some point, you have to ask, if someone meets all the stated conditions, silence, time, repeated apologies, demonstrated change, and the door still doesn't open, was it ever really about change? Or was it about keeping that door closed no matter what? The Melee community has a choice to make, and it's not about Hax anymore. It's about what standard we're going to use moving forward. If we want to keep using community opinion and a crippling fear of backlash as our North Stars, we're going to keep making these same mistakes until another fucking funeral livestream forces a temporary moment of silence and prayers during a major while they simultaneously run a Domino's ad on the broadcast. But if we admit that the community got this one wrong, and believe me, they fucking did, then maybe we start building a model that doesn't require a literal body to learn the lesson. So ask yourself, what does accountability look like when it's not just about punishment? What does forgiveness look like when it's not just a PR transaction? And what would a Smash community built on those things even look like? Because it looks nothing like the Smash community that we live in right now. And if we don't answer those questions, we're just waiting for the next name. I'm really, really sorry, Hax, that nobody fucking listened until it was too late. And thank you to Hax's mom for trusting me to cover this story. Yeah, I guess that's it. Rest in peace, Hax. You deserved better. 20XX forever and always.